All commissioners are present for the meeting. The first matter for us is the approval of the minutes.
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Ross to approve. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Peachum. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are passed. Approval of the order of the agenda, Commissioner Knopf has an issue.
I would like to add Lula Lombardi from the Veterans Administration Office.
Okay,
The agenda, please.
I think this is a pretty short issue. He's nodding yes, so he wants to be up front. We'll put him right after the special event permit, right before public health. And that'll solve that problem. Is that a motion? Did you add? Okay, motion. Do we have a second? Second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? So now we go back to the approval of the order of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Yeah.
You did that.
Everybody is all. We have a motion to approve. Do we have a second? Consent agenda.
Second. I thought we did that.
No, we just
No.
approved adding Lula to it.
Okay.
We have a second. All in favor of the order of the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The order of the agenda is passed. Next, we move to the approval of the consent agenda. Do any of the commissioners have any items that they want pulled from the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, please.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Second by Commissioner Ingen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? The consent agenda is passed as presented. The next matter is the special event permit.
Good afternoon, Matt Wallowak. I represent Ground Round Grill and Bar. We have a client that is requesting liquor services at the farmstead in Northwood.
Okay, we have an application for a special event permit. And the first thing that always comes up is if the sheriff is okay with all of this.
Yeah, they did contact me and it's good.
And this isn't related to this one, but I was thinking of it when I was reading through this today. Is there a spot, or shouldn't we maybe have a spot on there for the sheriff to sign off, or at least that they're notified? You don't want that? No.
Yeah. Chairman, all members of the commission, there's actually a century code where people are required to report this to the sheriff's office. So we already have our own forms for that. They have to apply it through the commission for the extension of the liquor license, and they have to run it through the sheriff's office for basically a security check to make sure they don't need extra additional officers.
Okay. But it occurs to me, don't we have people sometimes come in and they haven't contacted the sheriff's office?
Correct. There's a learning curve on this for sure.
All right. As long as you're happy, I'm happy. So this is a wedding at Northwood on the 23rd of July.
Yes.
Okay. Any questions from the commission?
I don't have any. I'll make a motion to approve the special events permit. Is it for Ground Round or is it for
It's for,
MW Hospitality?
that's my operating company.
Okay,
So it's the
so
same one.
just so.
Yeah. MMW Hospitality doing business as Ground Round.
Okay.
That's my motion.
Okay. And she's sticking to it. And we have a second from Commissioner Ross. All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is passed.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe I've got the fee, $25.
Yep, it's on the way here right now.
Oh, okay, and they'll drop it off with me?
Yep.
Okay, very good.
I won't leave until I get it.
Okay. Next, we have public health.
Mr. Chairman, I believe we put.
Oh, wait. Oh.
Put Luthen's.
Yeah. Sorry.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the board.
I'm here this afternoon to request permission to transfer funds from one account, my veteran services account, to the kitchen area account. Need a major repair, we're gonna replace a refrigerator in there. And that doesn't make good sense moving forward. It's at the end of its lifespan now, if it was major repair, so it's best to replace it altogether. I do have the funds, I'm not requesting any additional funds.
I just have a question. So did you decide which refrigerator you were gonna go
We're gonna
with?
go with the smaller first.
Smaller one, because we talked about, I mean, that's top of the line. Refrigerator in there and it isn't being used like it was years ago and it's just empty. And I can say that because I'm with the auxiliary and what have you. And so we talked about that and there were other options that weren't as expensive.
Educate me, Lou, this money is in what account?
That's in my veteran services area,
And then you're gonna move it to where?
over to the kitchen and conference room area.
Okay,
There's not enough. in
Two
there.
separate
Those
yeah,
accounts.
my question was whether or not they come before us, if it's in their budget and they handle it, but that's fine.
I was informed.
I can tell.
And how much is it?
3341.
Okay. Can we have a motion for that?
So, and I'll set.
Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Peach, second from Commissioner Knopf for the transfer of funds for the refrigerator. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
Good to go.
Have a good afternoon.
Now we can get to public health.
Chairman Vulcan, members of the commission, I do not have a COVID-19 update for you other than what you should have received last Friday from Michael Dulitz. Our health officer's dashboard was produced and there haven't been significant changes there. However, when I spoke with Mr. Ford about another matter for public health, he indicated that we can put it on the agenda, and I see that it does appear on the agenda, and you should have hopefully received information on that. And that is a request to reallocate some ARPA funding that was allocated to the health department from the county commission for purchase of a vehicle that could have been used for some outreach activities. We attempted to bid this. It was very difficult to get any estimates for the type of vehicle. We since have determined that we don't really have a need for it. We're able to use a lot of fixed sites for our COVID outreach activities and vaccinations. And Spectra Health does have an outreach vehicle that they hope to be using at some point in time. So we are now requesting the opportunity to reallocate that funding to a capital project within our department to renovate our administrative area, which is where our clients are received in the waiting room. This area has become very crowded with 3 staff members in close proximity to one another. It's not the most efficient nor the safest setup that we have right now. We do have a schematic of what we would like it to look like, which includes safety and security for the department, a little bit of social distancing for the staff that work there, and just a much better setup for receiving clients in our office and some reconfiguration of some existing space that's underutilized right now. So as we just explored this concept, we did reach out and attempt to get some estimates, not bids, but estimates of the cost. And we worked with Bill Grashevsky and Buildings and Grounds, and we only received one contractor interest in performing the work, and it's just under $75,000. The amount of funding that we had allocated for the outreach vehicle was $45,000. And within our budget, through the city budgeting process, we have sufficient funding to make up the difference in a carryover account. And we tend to keep our carryover for big projects like this so that we don't have to budget for them, that when we're efficient with our funding, we can do these capital types of requests. So that's the first part of my request. And if you approve that, the second part of our request is to have the county undertake this as a county-led building project with, I'm using the term loosely, construction management performed by Buildings and Grounds, so that they have control over the space. They work with you on any adjustments to the building, and that things are done according to how the county would want them done in a county-owned building versus utilizing the processes on the city side. So I have kind of a two-part request. I'm not sure, Mr. Chairman, how you want to handle that, but I'm happy to answer questions. You can see there is a schematic of what the space would look like, and then also the estimate from Boston Construction.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Gashesky and I did visit with Ms. Swanson as well about this, and Mr. Gashesky indicated that he would be fine taking point on it if the commission does approve it. Having the contractor use him as the point of contact, just for reference.
Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think Boston Construction, they're on site right now, right? They're doing all the work.
And they're the only ones that responded to the request.
Doesn't surprise me. I mean, it's hard to get people, so you should be glad they are here.
Yeah.
Any other questions? I guess I have one, and I'm not sure, but we would be using money, some of the money from the city, but we're improving our building. Are they all right with that? Or?
Mr. Chairman, I did request permission from the City Finance Committee to proceed with this and also to allow it to be done through the county with the city reimbursing the county, and they said yes. That was as of a week ago. That was the finance director. Typically, projects that are in less than $50,000 doesn't require council approval, and the city would be spending less than $50,000.
Okay, well, if it turns out otherwise, come back to us. We could always do it in capital improvements if we had to, but it's a good project.
Yeah.
And it's good that we can use some of the money that we're not buying that vehicle. So, anyone want to make a motion?
I would move approval
Okay.
of the use of ARPA funds to go towards the project at Grand Forks Public Health.
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's good to go.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, commissioners.
Mr. Burkholder is next.
Chairman, both members of the commission, thank you for your time. Hopefully we'll take just a few minutes. But this spring, when I submitted my 2023 budget, I included a request to change an unfilled corrections officer position using funds that were previously budgeted this year for an individual that actually retired. And I wanted to reclassify that position to a sergeant position because I had plans for that. I was inadvertently missed, and I found this out when I asked Ms. Nelson about the fact that I didn't come before the budget committee. On July 7th, I was invited to and did speak with the budget committee and expressed to them what I thought was missed in my budget and the sergeant position I would like to add. At that meeting, there was some discussion, and we discussed, one of the things we discussed is whether or not the need should be sooner rather than later if the funds exist, of which they do exist. I contacted Ms. Nelson's office and had them run the numbers, and the position, if it would have been filled on June 1st, still had a savings in my budget of over $50,000. And the way I'm looking at it, if you were to approve my request today, I'll still come in over $68,000 under budget in that one position. Reason being, I have not still to this date been able to fill the position. So every month, all the salary that's been budgeted has not been utilized. Why am I seeking to classify this position from a CO to a sergeant? I've got about a dozen officers that don't fall under the leadership of a sergeant. When we classified in 2017, we eliminated a sergeant position, a CO position, and the hope was that those individuals would be reporting to the lieutenants. Well, for the last 5 years, it hasn't worked bad, but it can work better. There are improvements we can do. And with the sergeant leading that team, like a sergeant leads all the other teams, there's a lot of advantages you would see. That sergeant would have under their control the EHM program, the SCRAM program, transport services program from court and medical. of which we have 5 staff involved in court and medical by themselves. They also be used for staff development, coordination with a designated lieutenant to facilitate, coordinate, and approach to success for all our new COs. I believe I have 26 new COs with less than 2 years experience. That's a very large number, and it's staff intensive on training and getting the assistance they need. And if we're going to retain, we need to put more effort into that. Also, if we ever get COVID under control, this sergeant would then be in control of all the programming that we have or used to have out at the facility, AA, the religious services, the SUD program, all of which currently are not operating because of COVID. Our hope is, of course, that they do come back and we get a point person for that, and this sergeant position would be a natural fit for it. And lastly, if we were to bring the sergeant back, I'd have the ability to have them assist occasionally on the standard 4 teams that it takes to operate the facility. When we have extended vacations, sick leaves, or family medical leaves, that gets very difficult because there's only 4 sergeants currently, and there's 4 teams. So when one person is gone for an extended period, we're struggling to either put lieutenants on some of the days, captain on some of the nights that it's even occurred, and or led by corporals. And corporals are trained where they can lead it, but it's trying to have a little bit more flexibility to have that supervisor, sergeant supervisor at that position. So today, what I before you is seeking a motion to reclassify one of my budgeted positions from a corrections officer back to a sergeant, and for it to be effective now rather than wait till the first of the year, and allowing us to move forward in the immediate improvement of this position.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Hay.
Do you have viable candidates from within those COs, or advertising outside? Those will be advertising outside, or what? How's that going to work?
Commissioner Engen, members of the commission, typically for the sergeant position, we have not gone outside of the agency, mostly because the intricacies of that position and the knowledge they need based on our policies and practices. We do have an individual or 2 that I believe are qualified. Whether or not they're interested, that's a whole nother question. I don't know.
Any other questions?
I do have
Yes.
questions just for clarification purposes, because I'm a little confused, but. So it's an unfilled position. At this point, we had a 5th
It's an unfilled CO position.
unfilled, okay, so the $68,000 budget savings would be that's been for this year.
Correct.
Okay, and so your ask is then to fill that now. But so when you folks did the budgeting for 2023, did we take that into consideration, the 5th one? Or is that what you're saying you forgot to, or weren't?
That
didn't
was, I
get
found it overlooked. I don't know if it's been.
It's included.
It is included in our budgets now going forward. And then I assume you're working with HR on this one.
Yes, ma'am.
Any thoughts, concerns?
Well, he's Sheriff Falcon and Commissioner Knopf. Mr. Burkholder and Roberta have been working closely on what types of strategies and things that we need to explore regarding retention of the staff. And also had talked about this group of employees that didn't have a sergeant to report to. And it would fall right under all the rest of the sergeant job descriptions. It would just be different teams or different tasks that would be assigned. So it would fall right in with the same type of thing that we've done with other departments in the past. Excuse me, I don't have any major concerns about taking and converting this position.
Okay, so there's not an ask for a CO position
No, this would not be additional headcount. This would be taking one existing headcount
And
that is an officer position and reclassifying that officer position to a sergeant position to be able to take over sergeant duties.
thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion that we approve the reclassification of that position from CO to a sergeant.
Second by Commissioner Engen. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
That's all I had. Thank you very much.
Juvenile detention isn't going to be here today, so we can come to Sheriff Schneider.
Good afternoon, Chairman Paul, members of the commission. Today I come to make a request that the commission consider hiring a temporary deputy sheriff beginning at around October 1st of this year. And I would request that that position be retained until approximately October 31st of 2023. The reason that I'm making this request is we have a deputy that is going to be on military deployment for 1 year. That time frame is starting September 9th. The reason I said till the end of October of next year is because they have a reacquisition period that's up to 30 days when they come back from their deployment. This temporary position would assist us with all our regular operations, and the county would not be paying the deputy while they're on their deployment. So this would have no additional cost increase to our employee salary budget. I'd make sure that any costs incurred if he took vacation time at all after his last day, that we would not have an overlap on pay on that. Our deployed deputy would return to his position that he is currently assigned upon returning from his deployment. And I stand for any questions or conversation you want to have more.
I got a comment. Oh, let's start with HR then.
Are you aware that his first 30 days of employment, he would be on paid leave?
Yes.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. We're gonna have this deputy until probably the end of October next year, somewhere around there.
Right.
So my question is, or my thought is that we hire him. Hopefully. And that they, with the idea that they're gonna remain with us. And if for some reason you don't have anybody leave, that we hold on to that person for a few months till there is turnover. There's turnover every year in that office. So I don't wanna, it's gonna be difficult to hire someone if they know they're gonna be out of a job in a year. And it's gonna have maybe a retirement, you know, it's too hard to say, but one for sure. We know that, we've already talked about that. But that position we filled, so we can't count on that. See what I'm saying?
We can, again, I can't count on this either, but we can usually bank on 3 to 4 retirements or resignations in a calendar year. It's pretty normal.
So, but if that wouldn't happen, my thought is we hold on to this person for an extra, it might cost us a little bit of money, but for 1 to 6 months until we have that retirement, and then that position would not be filled. But I don't want to lose, it's too hard to get these people right now, so why would we want to lay one off? Anybody agree or disagree? Agree? Yeah. Okay.
So I guess my request would be a motion along the lines that the sheriff's office can move forward with the hiring process, that to hire somebody tentatively as soon as possible, if no sooner than the deputy that's leaving is FMLA or is paid time off is expired.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make that motion and add to it what you were talking about, that we don't have a firm termination date. Idea that the candidate would be probably not guaranteed, but a strong consideration to continue if people resign or leave for any other reason during the year.
Yeah, we might have to hold on to him until even, we might have an extra deputy for 3 or 4 months there.
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't retire or leave, but somebody will. Let's see what happens. I
Usually
agree.
does.
Okay, that's good. And do we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion on that?
The only thing would be is please tell the officer that is leaving for deployment, thank you for his service and wish him all the best of luck from the county.
Absolutely.
Would be important.
All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Thank you.
Okay, can we just skip by the finance and tax director?
I
Shortening the meeting up a lot. Okay, finance and tax.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, on your desk, you have the 2023 budget packet I gave you. In there shows you how the mills are calculated. That's the first 12 pages or whatever it is. 10 pages. Then the next, or 11 pages. Attached to that is the itemized list of every revenue and every expense by line item in every department. You also, in there is the, I gave you a separate sheet of the levy calc because we're going to talk about that. And that is just, this whole booklet is that sheet. So the front part is telling you how you calculate. How did we calculate that? What is the budget for the general fund? What is the interim fund going to be? What are all the revenues that we're going to offset these expenses? And what is the bottom line that we need to levy for? And so that shows you the calculation. That same calculation is on this sheet, this levy calculation sheet. So I have my notes. You can have a copy of my notes and we're gonna go through every change in that budget. Would you like a copy?
Yes.
Yes.
And they're just my notes. So the Grand Forks County Employees Association requested an 8.6% COLA indicated by the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, a step increase, and any health increase to their deductible would be added on the back end of the health reimbursement account. We don't know yet if there's any deductible increase at this point. The calculated cost of an 8.6% COLA and a step increase are as follows. The general fund, 1.7 million, veterans, 25,000, NDSU extension, 11,464, highway, 194,424, for a total of 1,962,601. If that was added to the budget, it would be 5.11 mils. I don't have anything for the highway, and you can see that it's not levied. Anything that we add to the highway for salaries, they deduct on some other line item. So we do not levy for the highway. And so that's why I don't see any mills there. We're using about $4.5 million in cash from the general fund. If the 8.6% COLA and step were included in the budget, we would be at 47.26 mils in the general fund. If we didn't have that $4.5 million in cash, we'd be at 61.09 mils. The general fund is allowed a maximum of 60 mils. The Administrative Services Committee asked me to include a 3% step increase for qualified employees on their seniority date. 5% cost of living increase January 1, 2023, including the state's attorney, sheriff, and commission. That will cost $1.1 million, and that does not include the highway, because we don't levy for the highway. So I have a breakdown of how much it costs for a step in that 1.1 million. The general fund is 220,000. Of the total $245,000 for a step increase, 4.65 mils. The COLA is almost $1 million, but that includes 100,000 for the highway department, which is not included. So that's 2.59 mils. So if you add them together, it's 1.2 million, including the highway department, or 3.59 mils. Without the $4.5 million in cash in the general fund, we would be at 59.26. So just under the 60 mils. But right now, that would put us at 45.45 mils. Each 1% of a COLA costs us $180,000 approximately, or 0.52 mils. Health insurance has been increased by 12%. The range that was given was 5 to 12%. That amounted to $405,000. Of that, the general fund is $350,000. The staff that was included in this year's budget, preliminary budget, is the state's attorney. We have reclassified a part-time position to a full-time position. The cost is $62,000, but it was offset by $50,000 from the asset forfeiture revenue and by lowering an hourly line item in her budget. So there was no effect on the preliminary budget for that. Juvenile detention promoted an officer position to a lieutenant position to manage the attendant care program. No increase to their budget because we will no longer be contracting for youth works to do that, provide that service. The sheriff added a non-benefited deputy, 23,000. NDSU extension, they had a position that went from a 0.8 to 1 full-time. And the cost of that is split between the county and the state. So it's $2,492 and that's included. And what Mr. Burkholder was just talking about, reclassification, this is not in my notes, but the reclassification of that one position is also included. Other changes included in the 2023 budget. Commission approved up to $35 million for the Juvenile Detention Correctional Center expansion project. I have included 6 mils to the preliminary budget, but that will only service a debt of $28.75 million. So we're short $6.25 million of that $35 million project. If you levy 7 mils, yes?
But didn't we set that at 30 million, that project?
So the motion that was made by the commission was 35 million. That's the high end. And we did that because we had to advertise for 60 days prior. And if we had gone 30 and it came out at 31 or something like that, we'd have to start over.
Okay.
So you made a motion for 35 million. Actually, that will come to the first meeting in August because the 60 days is now through. So we will have a motion to approve and so on at the next meeting.
Okay.
So a consideration, do you want 6 mils? You could go 7 mils. You could increase in a mil, knowing then that we'd be closer to $35 million. Something to think about.
But we're not, with 6, we're not at even 30 right now.
No, we're not.
Appreciate that.
Right, and remember today, if you approve that preliminary budget,
Can't go higher.
you cannot go higher. You can go lower, but you cannot go higher. So you might want to consider that.
We don't have to approve today, we can approve.
You can approve the first meeting in August. It has to be done by August 10th. So you do have time. If you don't want to do it today, you could wait till then.
Okay.
But just keep that in mind that you cannot go up after that. Capital improvement budget was decreased from 2 million to 1 million. I have listed there projects that have been requested for 2023. Information technology, PC replacement, 250,000. The highway Gilby shed renovation. Remember, they're doing 1 shed a year. We're gonna pay half and highway pays half, so that's 150,000. Sheriff has a training room facility, a restroom, $125,000. Correctional center, Zamboni for cleaning machine, 20,000. And then there's 5 projects listed for buildings and grounds, and it's not including the ones that are in desperate need that Mr. Ford will be talking about shortly. That's the dome over at the courthouse. So, anyway, he's got the COB interior lighting, $30,000 per floor. 3rd floor paint, $15,000. 3rd floor carpet, $90,000. And then he has CH courthouse, AHUDX units. I have no idea what they are, but they're at their lifespan, and we need 3 of them. And so they're $60,000 each at $180,000. And then the COB bathroom remodel, if we do another floor, $75,000. So that's $935,000. So we're now going from 2 million to 1 million, but we've got requests for almost all of that. If you decided to go back up to $2 million, it would add 3.79 mils to our budget.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Nelson, the AHUDX units are the air handlers. I'll be bringing up later.
So, oh, you're gonna bring that up too? Is this something that has to be done now? Okay. And so he's gonna do that in addition to the dome, so maybe I shouldn't have listed it here, because it's gonna be done before 2023, perhaps, maybe.
What is it that the mills would increase to?
3.79 if you go back. 3.79. So we've got the 2.558 right now. If you added that to 2 million, you'd be at 6.37. And if you increase the capital construction from 6 to 7, that's another amount, 7.37.
But the capital construction, we're allotted up to 10 mils, but what concerns me, and you're telling us even back on the salaries, is that if we add mills and some of what we're paying with cash carry forward, down the road, that's gonna catch us and we're gonna be over 60 mils and have to make massive cuts. So.
Yep.
It's a double-edged sword, so, okay, sorry.
So when you approve the budget, you will be approving the dollar amount included for capital improvements and not the individual projects. I would recommend the project be reviewed and approved before the end of this year. Okay, so now we're gonna go for each department in the general fund.
Can we go back, you're recommending what be reviewed and approved?
Oh, the capital improvements, although they're listed here, when you make the approval to, it's whenever you do the preliminary budget, you're not saying, I approve these projects. You're gonna have another meeting later on.
Right, normally we'd have that after the first part of next year.
Yes, we do. Yeah, either end of this year or first part of next year.
Because what it's telling me at least is that not all these projects are gonna get done, because if we're limited to $1 million and we have 935, we have no emergency cushion whatsoever, really. Right. Some of these are gonna get cut. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so general fund, each department. So I have a list of what they were in 2022 and what their request for 2023 is. So the human service zone indirect cost, same as it was in 2022. County fair, same as it was in 2022. Insurance reserve increased $40,000. And that's the increase 30 from liability insurance and 10,000 from workers' comp. Prices are going up. Advertising is the same. Correctional center, their increase is $422,760 or 5.57%. They have $311,000 from salaries and benefits, $40,000 for furniture and equipment, $32,000 for building repairs, $24,500 for fuel and gas, and $12,000 for service agreements. Board of Commissioners, $13,160 increase, $10,610 from salaries and benefits, and $18.50 for a dues increase. Human resources, $33,365. Salary and benefits increased $27,915. They're also going to get some software to help them with recruiting for 4850. Director of Administration increased $99,640 or 35% over last year. There was an additional position added to that department after the 2022 budget was approved. So we see that this year. 10,632 salary and benefits for this COLA and step increase. $7,000 increase for travel, $5,000 for Grand Sky and admin fees. And there's $121,000 in base retention, and that's still in the budget. Mr. Ford did recommend taking it out. The Administrative Services Committee thought it was a full board decision whether or not it should come out and stay in. So I'm asking you, do you want the $121,000 in? The actual cost of that would be $158,000 or 0.46 mils.
Why, what's the difference? Why the actual cost?
Because anytime you add to the budget, you add to the interim cost and the delinquency allowance. So you take it times 25% and then you take it times 5% and you get 158,813. And the impact of the budget is 0.46 mils.
Mr. Chair, could I say quick, on the 121, depending on what the commission would do there, I'd have another area I could recommend decreasing because it would go in tandem with the 121. It would be the base retention travel. So just for reference.
The 121 is, and well, serving on this commission, probably the greatest experience I've had is meeting those two gentlemen and working with them. They're incredible. I just don't know that we can afford them this year. Because our budget, I mean, we're just running too high here on everything. And if we're telling the employees we can't meet the COLA, I think we need to look at cuts. And there are probably other things in our budget we need to look at over the next 2 weeks if we can cut. I'll have some pet projects or things that we like to support in here, and the consultants that are mine and probably Commissioner Higgins for sure. But we've had them a long time and they are invaluable, but the base seems to be in a fairly strong position right now. And I just don't know that we can afford it. It's a simple fact. Yes.
Yeah, we talked about this quite a bit here and there. And each time that I get into a Zoom meeting with our consultants and they talk about knowing the particular people to talk to in each of the headquarters, and they're able to line up these meetings, and they've done such a wonderful job of assisting the base, get new missions and those sorts of things. Of course, the congressional delegations do that too. But some of the new things are not finished yet. I would love to see them stay for a while longer. And I don't know whether we can afford to do it at all, or for half a year, or whatever everyone decides. But I do think that we're not completely at the point where we don't need them, in my view. But what are other people's thoughts?
Anyone else comments?
Well, it certainly would make sense to leave something in the budget for them to get to the final stage of some projects that they're working on, instead of dropping that relationship building with those individuals at the federal level. Because if you would drop those consultants entirely, you may not see a conclusion of where you want to be at that point.
I think it's all or nothing with them because they're gonna look for a new client if it's not us. So I don't think they're interested in Mr. Ford can correct me, but they're probably not interested in taking a partial payment or whatever, taking less money. Is that right, Tom?
Yes, sir, I would agree. I'll throw this out that there will always be something pertaining to the base. The base is in a very good position now. Grand Sky is in a very good position now. If the county could always have something to work on. But I'm at a place where I'm comfortable. If the commission needs to start looking at some decreases, I'm comfortable in suggesting we're at a point where we can deboard, I guess, what I'm trying to say tactfully.
Sheriff?
Yes.
I wasn't suggesting that asking them to work for less hours or less fee. But is there a reason to keep them around for a third of the year or a half of the year at their normal rate until we see how things shake up out in the next 6 to 9 months?
Well, I'm listening and I'm thinking maybe we keep them through June of next year, which would be a year from now. This, about 60,000 or whatever it is. If they're, and we hopefully will have more ideas on the base, whether this mission is going to be set up. And if we are concerned that maybe at that point we find the extra money somewhere in our budget, maybe our fuel costs are going to go down. I mean, they're extraordinary right now. But we might be able to find to keep them on at the end of the year or whatever. I don't know.
I think that'd be a reasonable approach to plan to keep them the first half of the year and see where it takes us. Because, right, we can't just keep spending this money if we don't need it anymore.
Yeah, and we'll have to let them know, and they may start looking for another client, and there's not much we can do about it, and it's only fair to them. What do you think, Mr. Ford?
I can certainly go back and visit with General Finley and General Rue, see what their thoughts are. It's certainly up to the commission, just providing my thoughts on the situation. Happy to reach out to them.
Okay. I think we should reach out to them and see about the fact that we're considering maintaining them through June of next year and see what their response is. And, first part of next year, if things look better for us than they do right now, then we can keep them. Right. Really right now. Let's say you, Commissioner Peach.
I would agree. I think that we need to retain them for a period of time. So I would agree and then look for other resources once we get beyond into the new year.
Yeah. Commissioner Knopf, any thoughts?
No, I guess, Mr. Ford felt it would be okay to drop that right now. I'm comfortable with his thoughts on that.
Mr. Ross?
I'm not that familiar with what's going on out there with the Bay. I know the generals have done a really good job for us. And I guess I feel like Mr. Ford, I guess, and Commissioner Knopf, I just think we should cut it. We've got a tight budget. Got a real tight budget, so.
Well, we don't have to approve it this time, but I think what we should do is, and maybe I can, or myself and or Commissioner Ingen and Mr. Ford or whoever, talk to the generals and see between now and our next meeting. And maybe they're not interested in staying for just 6 months next year. They might just say we're done or whatever, and that solves our problem. But I think we owe a little discussion with them ahead of time. We owe them that. To be upfront about things. So let's, maybe if everyone's all right with it, defer until our next meeting. Okay. In the meantime, we'll talk with them and see what's going on. Sure. Okay. Is that good, Commissioner Knopf? We're getting nods. Okay, all right, Mr. Ford will get on the horn.
Yes, sir.
Okay, next, department, district court is the same. Sexually dangerous is the same. Finance and tax increase of $39,017, 4.98%. All of the increase was due to the salaries and benefits. State's attorney increase of $238,972 includes all the changes is due to salaries and benefits here as well. And if you offset that 238 by the $50,000 revenue that she's going to use, she would be at 6.41% increase. Victims witness fees, same. The recorder, 32,224, 8.57. All of it is salaries and benefits, and that's all we pay out of her for her budget is salaries and benefits. We pay nothing else for her department. That all comes out of the TAC fund, which is the dollar that for every page that gets written. Superintendent of schools, $380. He also qualifies for the COLA, so he'll get that. Tax equalization, $29,247, 6.5%, all salaries and benefits. Information technology, $27,000 decrease, furniture and equipment. I guess I didn't, their budget, they're getting their new person is at starting step 1, and it's replacing some that was at a 13. So that's why they don't have much of an increase. Employee benefits, $1,000, and that's for the Live Well and the Insurance Center. Buildings and grounds, $87,974, 11.8%. $23,124 in salaries and benefits, $50 additional for repairs, and $9,350 in service equipment. Decrease in elections, it's a non-election year. PSAP budget increased $33,172 or 11.47. The county pays a 21.17% on the 5-year call average, and the budget also includes 2 additional dispatchers because of the service demand. County memberships, no change. Contracted services, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, about the detox center. I have reasons why that increased, $13,450. CBIC, $5,000, community service, $2,000, and a decrease in youth works. The COB conference room, kitchen, that's where Lou is gonna transfer money from his own budget to this budget for the refrigerator. And that increased $100 for miscellaneous. Capital improvements, a decrease of $1 million. The sheriff, $268,734. $201,512 for salaries and benefits, includes the $22,438 for hourly non-benefited position, and $72,000 increase in gas. Juvenile detention, $40,890 for salaries and benefits, and a decrease in $10,000 under service agreement. Some of it has been taken over by buildings and grounds. Mental health and coroner, no increase. Emergency management, $16,569 is all salaries and benefits. Same with planning and zoning. An increase of $5,000 for the Grand Forks Historical Society. The rest of them are all offset by revenue. We're using more cash than last year, about $1 million. We have less revenue than last year of $279,000, and a decrease of almost $500,000, or 1.97%. And we have our special revenue fund, our county road and bridge. It's a decrease of $411. They're still at 10 mils, but they have $539,000 less in cash and revenue than they did in 2022. Historical Society, Grand Forks increased their requests. So there's overall gonna remain at 0.25 mils, but that was $3,268. The senior citizens, they get 1 mil, so when the value of a mil goes up, their budget goes up. Veterans, 25,377, 20,116 is from salaries and benefits, and then $5,200 is for the van. They're gonna share in the cost of transporting veterans to the VA in Fargo. Economic development, 5,500. Grand Forks Regional requested more money of 2.2%. NDSU extension, there was a cost allocation increase, 21,868. And the rest was that position they added, or the time in that one position. The city county health department went up 18,520, or 3.17% increase. Some salaries. Lead board, 11,706, a 2.55% increase, but their levy actually went down 0.17 mils. Capital construction, down to 6 mils, generating, you pay on 28.75 million in bonds. Special assessments, we've got the same 5,000. State tax and garrison valuation increased. They get 1 mil each. The water board, no change. Library increased 9637 or 1.31%. Red River joint requested 1.5 mils. The increase is 35,382. And ambulance is 6 mils. That was voted on. Electric, and so when the valuation goes up, that goes up. Airport, it's 4 mils, and soil, no change. So the general are the special revenues listed, increased 1.82. And if we didn't have the 6 mils in there for the capital construction, we would have a decrease in those. And then the highway department is a decrease of 35,000. There again, we don't levy for that. We had $301,000 more in cash and 262 less in revenue for an overall increase of $2 million or 7.5% increase in those special revenue accounts. Yes.
When we are approving it in the temporary budget and we can't increase, is there an issue with this 6 mils versus 7 mils from the capital construction budget?
It is.
So
it is. So you could go 7 and then go down from that, but you can't. You can increase it later once you approve it.
then this is not, of course, the 28.75 million is payable over a long period of time.
20 years.
So, but is it dangerous for us to say 6 mils when we maybe might need to be at 7?
It would be if that was the case.
We're not even gonna make the minimum that we've already set, and we've had a couple of meetings on this budget or this project's gonna overrun. I mean, I saw one figure 42 million. So it's gonna be large, and I'm sure the bids are gonna be higher than I think also. I think we have no alternative of the setting at 7 mils. And then we can, if we want to keep it at that 30 million or whatever we're keeping it, we can make it 6.5 or 4, whatever it works out to. But we can't increase, so I think we have to do that.
Should I do that for our next meeting then? When I request approval?
Sure.
Yeah. So would you have to this has to be done by the 10th, so we'd have to have a special meeting after the first meeting?
No, well,
We'll
I'm
take care of it all.
on the 2nd of August.
2nd of August.
Yeah.
Has to be done by the 10th of August, right? Okay.
Meeting on the second.
Yes.
Good.
Okay, next page. The estimated value of a mill is $346,325 compared to last year's $332,615, a difference of $13,710. That's our increase, 4.12%. Got it, the mills, if it's a Grand Forks City property versus a county property. And the difference being the airport and the week do not apply to the city of Grand Forks. So that's the difference there. They will have an increase of 2.79 and out in the county week 2.58 because there was a decrease in mills in the week. So. So if you take that times the mills, we gained $1.1 million because of the valuation increase. If we didn't have that additional increase, we'd be increasing our levy by 3.2 mils. So if the 2.58 mil increase was approved, if your valuation didn't increase and your home was worth $200,000, you'd pay $23.22 more a year, or $1.94 a month. And for commercial, it would be $25.80 more a year, or $2.15 a month. The contracted services, the Grand Forks Community Service and Restitution increased by $2,000. That was the first increase they've had since 2014. The Humane Society remained the same at 20. Youth Works, we do not have them. We had $14,000 in the 2022 budget. CBIC increased from 100,000 to 105,000. The Children's Advocacy Center remained the same. The Detox Center increased $13,450. There are reasons for that. There was a grant that has now expired that was being offsetting the costs of the detox center. The building is now privately owned and the utilities have increased. And for stability and recruitment, they've had to make some transition from part-time to full-time. So that's the reasons for the increases there. One thing on my notes I handed you, the first column there should say 2023 and not 2022. I've got that little column. And then the overall difference is $6,450. I didn't in the 2022 column have the Save Kids added to my formula there. So I just needed that $25,000 added. So the difference is actually $6,450.
The 2023 should be the first column.
Yes, yes, that is correct. So you can see there's 288,667 compared to 282,217. The difference of that is only $6,450. So yeah, the copy that you have in front of you is wrong. The emergency fund is included at 0.44 mils, which will generate about $151,000. I anticipate the cash balance in that fund will be about 1.3 million at the end of the year. We're not allowed to levy if our cash balance is above what 5 mils would generate, which would be about 1.7. And then you have a list of our revenues in 2022 compared to 2023, and they're very similar. The estimated tax bill and property hearing notice we must have our budget done by August 10th. If you levy over 100,000, and you have to set your date. And so I'll ask that we usually do that September 6th, the first meeting in September. That gives us one more meeting. You have to have it done by October 1st. And so maybe I could have you guys set that. It really doesn't matter. We do that prior to August 2nd, I'll just ask that. If a taxing district fails to provide the information provided by August 10th, they may not impose a property tax levy in a greater amount in dollars than was imposed in the prior year. And if they don't give it to me after the estimated tax bills go out, they get nothing. So by August 31st, I am required to provide a notice to each property owner with an estimated property tax if they owe at least $100. And the direct cost of providing the notice will be allocated throughout all the taxing entities. And if there are any questions, are there any questions on the changes in the budget, or we could hear from the public if they have any questions?
Question, is the salary increase of 8? Is that the result of a salary study?
No, the salary is 5% that's in here.
I'm sorry, what?
The salary that's in here is 5% COLA and a 3% step increase on your seniority date. What was requested by the Employees Association was 8.6, and that was based on the consumer price index.
But as the salary, as we see salaries increase, that will, with the COLA and the step increases, that we will see them get closer to what the market is. So that's something to consider.
So yes, the step is 3%. So if you're a qualified employee to receive that, you would get 8%.
I don't know if we're gonna get any closer to market because the market's gonna rise with the COLAs or the cost of living, so it's a never ending.
But they are gonna level off.
Yeah, we hope so, but I mean, and this, I've been around here a long time with the county and both ends of this, but it's a reasonable step. We can't meet the cost of living. If the cost of living is 8.6%, and our increased revenues is 4%, it just doesn't add up. So maybe as far as we can possibly go. We're taking money from one pie that it shouldn't necessarily go to salaries, but we have to do it right now. And my question is, Debbie, is if we follow along with what you've got laid out so far, and let's assume the 3% step, and unfortunately that won't go, some people will be maxed out, won't get that, but most will. And then the 5%, which is across the board cost of living. What does that, in the end of our budget, we're using some cash forward to balance things out, which some years we're not gonna have. But what does that do for our mills this time around? Let's take out the capital improvements, where are we at as far as mills?
So I did say that in my note, but if you look at this little
Okay.
levy calculation sheet, it shows you on this column here, it says 2023 budget. And if you follow that down, it says 45.43 mils in the general fund. Overall, 89.57. This little sheet, a separate sheet I handed you. Yep.
So in the 89.7, does that include what we're doing on the correctional center?
6 mils.
That doesn't include that in there.
It does.
So
So
we-
if you add one more mil to that, now we're at 9.57
Yeah.
or 3.58 mil.
So we'd be going up about, no. We could be going up about 3.5 mils, even though we're adding 7. But
Right.
we're cheating a little bit with our cash.
Right.
You can live with that.
I have to use all the money that we have. So
I
I
know.
mean, I can't not.
Yeah, so that's,
Yeah.
okay, then we can do that.
Yeah.
But some years we may not have that money.
Exactly, and that's kind of wanted to point out to you that if we didn't have that cash, this is where we'd be at, and we'd be at almost 60 mils.
So our budget last year was what, 42 something? You remember?
They,
This year,
22.
Mills or millions or what?
I'm talking dollar wise.
so I can tell you. So last year, are you talking about the net levy, what we levied, or do you want to know the actual budget dollars?
The budget dollars.
So we levied 42 million, our budget last year for everything was 42,465,585.
So this year it's 44, not 44,
Yep.
34 or whatever, and so then, and then does that include our new building? Christina proposal?
Yeah, 44,5, yes, it includes the, yeah, it, $2
Well,
million debt service on that, on the project.
but we're gonna add 1 mil, so it's gonna help go up slightly.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Another 300,000, probably.
What I had in my packet was just property tax and how you calculate, and that was just informational for you guys to see. If you have any questions on that, and then, so the last 2 pages are just informational. You can see how you calculate taxes, and then what our bills have been in the past.
And, you know, I think we have to look at what we're talking about here for this, for the employees. And somebody mentioned salary study. There just is no money for that right now. I mean, it's an extra $10. We just don't, we're gonna have trouble finding it, so I don't know how we can apply that right now. You know, in years where we had 1% cost of living, it might have been doable, but right now it's just not.
So overall, it's a 2.58. My old guys can hardly see these little numbers. 2.58% increase.
That mill increase, yeah.
Cost wise,
Well, actually, it's gonna be 3.57 or 8 mil levy increase when we had that one for the correctional center, so. 3.5 mils about. Any other questions? I guess what I'd do is encourage everyone to think about this and to see if you've got any ideas in the next 2 weeks. I know we've had meetings on this, some have not always been able to attend everyone, but if we have any other ideas about where we can save a few dollars in the budget, we can talk about it in 2 weeks and then approve this budget. I think fair.
So the only change that I'm gonna make is that I'm going to increase the capital construction from 6 mils to 7 mils. I'm not gonna do anything else, right? Okay. And then I'll ask for approval on August 2nd of the preliminary, and that's what will go out on the estimated tax. bill.
And where are we at with the consultants in this part of the budget so far? They're still in, or they're in for half, or where are they?
They're in with the plan.
Okay, then we'll talk. Then that will come up next time. Anything else, Ms. Nelson?
That's it.
Now the fun part, Mr. Ford with courthouse dome repair.
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Got a few things for the board's consideration. The first one is the courthouse dome repair. And Miller Dinwiddie, I think I'm saying that correctly, Mr. Grishewski's on vacation, so he couldn't be here. They have proposed an assessment to repair and rehab the courthouse dome. The issue with the courthouse dome is just historical building. So you need to find a contractor who has experience in restoring and rehabbing historically significant buildings. And they aren't cheap. They being the cost, the overall cost is not cheap. So Mr. Grzeszewski did reach out to a handful of contractors who have specialization in historical preservation. Miller Dinwiddie did provide a package, an assessment, and that's what you have before you. So staff would be, or Miller Dinwiddie is proposing a fee of $48,010 to move forward with the assessment and begin drawing up a scope of work to have the dome repaired and replaced. So please keep in mind, that's the fee to retain the expert. That's not the actual construction hard cost. So county staff, because of everything I've mentioned, county staff is recommending the commission accept Miller Dinwiddie's proposal. If the commission does so, Miller Dinwiddie has stated they could begin next month on the process. So we would be looking for commission approval and chair's signature on the proposal.
Do you know if this is the courthouse or this is the company that did the courthouse?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Knopf, it is not. It is not. Also, thank you for, you jogged my memory. I did reach out to the Grand Forks Historical Preservation Society. And I reached out to the North Dakota Historical Preservation Society looking for grants and funding ideas. The Historical Preservation Grant was not funded in the last legislative session, so there's no money available there. Those I spoke with out in Bismarck are optimistic that that fund will get funded in the next legislative session. So that is something we could look at. It's a small, it would probably be a small amount, but any amount helps. Ms. Carhar with the local preservation society did send on some recommendations. But from what I've been able to gather, this type of work wouldn't qualify for what I've been able to find so far. So there's not a lot of grant funding options to help with this project, and we can look at it if the State Historical Preservation Fund is funded in the next session. But no, ma'am, this is not. That company was out of Carrington and would have been more expensive than what we have here.
So are we paying for this out of ARPA?
Mr. Chairman, I think we could afford a couple of, we have just shy of $1.2 million.
Left in there. So we can hopefully take care of some of this. Okay.
So is it the $48,000 fee?
Yes, it's $48,010 to retain the specialist to begin the assessment and drawing up the scope of work.
Okay, anyone want to make a motion on that?
I move that we approve Miller Dinwiddie at the fee of $48,010 to conduct the assessment and begin the work on, or the process of scope of work.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Any further comments? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
No, thank you. Next item is on the courthouse cooling system. Just to refresh the commission's memory, yes, this was on Mr. Grzeszewski's list of projects to be accomplished in the next 3 years. With the difficult winter and then the torrential downpours we had in the spring, unfortunately, that caused some damage to the units, which have begun leaking into the courthouse. So they need to be replaced. And the commission gave Mr. Grzeszewski the go ahead to look into that. CMTA is the company that has provided the scope and the estimate. After taking a look at the courthouse with Mr. Grzeszewski, they did come up with two different options. One is to replace the 3 current air handlers with new modern air handlers. And that is a total project price of $609,800. The second option was to replace the entire unit with a chiller. Very similar, somewhat similar to what was replaced on top of the Cobb. That comes out to $1,085,000. So $1 million, just over $1 million. It's staff's recommendation that the commission approve option one, the like-for-like replacement, and retain CMTA to move forward in replacing those units in the courthouse. The commission did opt to use ARPA to replace the cooling system in the Cobb. I know I mentioned it to Ms. Nelson, but nothing was really determined, but commission decision, capital improvements or possibly ARPA, I defer to Ms. Nelson on that one, but would be looking for commission approval on option one, like for like, and proceeding forward with replacement.
Well, it seems like we're gonna have to use. Well, we could probably use capital improvements on this and save the ARPA on the Dome project if we have to. One or the other is gonna have to come out of ARPA because we can't do both out of capital improvements. And that other number could be huge. And the problem is we're kind of at least trying to save some of that ARPA money to reduce or to assist in the overruns on the correctional center. So keep that in mind.
This is still on the 22 budget then?
This would come out of that, but yeah.
That makes
So
sense.
that's, at least we know where we're at on that, or if we take it on capital improvements, we kind of know where we're going.
Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we approve the like-to-like replacement for an estimated cost $609,800 to be come out of capital.
And that's through
CMTA.
CMTA.
Yeah, CMTA.
Okay. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
Second by Commissioner Peach. Any further discussion on this? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Continuing to ask for money. The state's attorney's office and court administration did inventory the basement of the courthouse for the commission's request. They have identified what essentially could be removed from that basement. After visiting with Wayland's Moving Company and looking at the cost for rollaway dumpsters from the city, estimate it's going to cost around $4,000. This also, Commissioner Peach, I spoke with Mr. Pickett from the Human Service Zone. There's also some furniture that they need to have removed, and it's right now they have no place for it. It needs to be discarded, and it's holding up their remodel. So I factored that into the overall equation. So looking at about $4,000 to do that. Probably would have to come out of capital improvements as well if the commission approves it.
Is that all those file cabinets and things like that?
I don't know exactly what they want removed, Commissioner Knopf. Mr. Pickett just reached out and had let me know that there was old furniture they weren't using anymore and wasn't salvageable that needed to be discarded.
Majority of broken chairs, things like that.
So it's in that middle,
Yeah.
room on the north end.
Court administration indicated they would cost share. I don't know, haven't had any follow-up on what that would look like. I would suppose it has to do with the share of their property being removed, but they are willing to cost share.
Maybe I wasn't listening carefully enough. Does this include labor on this deal?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, it includes labor for 4 workers and 2 rollaway dumpsters.
I don't know if 2 will do it, but it's a good start. Okay. Any motions?
Mr. Chair, I would move approval of the request that Mr. Fortes made.
Any second? Second by Commissioner Knopf. Looks like a reluctant second. We'll go to any other comments on this. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion approved, Mr. Ford. Anything else?
Yes, sir. And I'm going to be very, very brief so that I'm not withstanding in between you and dinner. Commissioner Ross and I were invited to attend a meeting with North Dakota Department of Transportation. It was initiated by the chamber. Essentially, as you're all aware, there is a historically high amount of infrastructure federal dollars that's available to counties, cities. The chamber would like to see the county and the cities, Polk, Grand Forks, East Grand Forks, start taking some action on bridges. So that's what myself and the commissioner were invited to that. It was an interesting meeting. Essentially, the feedback from North Dakota DOT was you have to do a lot of prep work before you just come to Bismarck and ask for grant funding. Mr. Phelan from the city was also there. He had indicated to Commissioner Ross and I that the city would be interested in working with the county on a Merrifield Bridge, which I think it's safe to say took us by surprise a little bit. So on the heels of that meeting, Mr. West and I reached out to Polk County leadership, because in the past, Polk County has indicated Merrifield's hasn't been a priority. They've got some other bridges that's a priority for them. So it would be a non-starter for Grand Forks County to even entertain bridge talk when our counterparts across the river, it's not a priority. To our surprise, my surprise and Mr. West's surprise, Polk County staff indicated they would be interested in working with Grand Forks County if Grand Forks County took the lead on this. So not committing to anything. I had a follow-up discussion with Mr. Phelan. Where eventually myself and Commissioner Ross were invited to a joint city council meeting between Grand Forks and East Grand Forks. I was asked to say a few remarks to sum up the North Dakota DOT meeting and my meeting with Polk County. Out of that meeting, what I think Commissioner Ross would attest to heard was the priority for the city of Grand Forks is a Merrifield Bridge. So anyways, East Grand Forks they put out an RFP for engineers to look at the 32nd Street Bridge, or excuse me, 32nd Avenue Bridge. And at that joint meeting, they asked for Grand Forks city leadership to be on the selection committee. A few days later, Mr. Phelan reached out to me because they would like a representative from Polk County and Grand Forks County to be on the selection committee for this engineering firm. So I talked with Mr. West, and he's going to be a part of the selection committee. It's not committing Grand Forks County to anything. So let me just put that out right now. But they're trying to be collaborative and include us because East Grand Forks is going to widen their scope and include the Merrifield Bridge in the engineering study, which is why they reached out to the two counties to be part of the selection committee. So nothing's been committed, but we just wanted to provide that update to the board. And there is a lot of federal infrastructure money right now. We might never see this amount again. Ms. Leon's been looking into some of that funding with Mr. West. There is a lot of funding out there. She's been working with Stephanie Halford, the MPO director as well. But just taking a couple first steps to see what that planning situation might look like before we can start asking for state and federal money. And maybe our project doesn't qualify, but we're at least just taking a look at it. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair, unless there's any questions.
So when the city talks about working with us, does that include financial help? Because they want the Merrifield Bridge,
Yes, ma'am.
and it's not going to help the situation between Grand Forks and East Grand Forks, the intercity bridge. And so will Polk or East Grand Forks want to contribute when this isn't going to help them at all? It's not
Might
gonna-
have to be Polk.
Yeah,
Well,
so,
but right now, I mean, it would be Polk and East Grand Forks and Grand Forks and Grand Forks. I mean, there would be 4 entities, but we have we may lose East Grand Forks because they still need the intercity bridge. And that apparently is not being proposed, particularly by the city of Grand Forks, who doesn't want it, period, end of story. And so then, and I know that there's a lot of money, federal money and things like that, and so because of that, I guess I am interested, because we have to do that Merrifield Bridge at some point. We keep putting it off. The towing costs are gonna get higher and those monies may not be available later on. But on the other hand, we're putting in a bridge that kind of goes to nowhere, goes to 81, period, end of story. There's no, there's no interstate connection. I mean, who's gonna use it? We've got two other bridges over to East
Thompson
Grand
Bridge is
Forks
used a lot.
to already.
These are like future bridges. I mean, they're looking at, when you look right now at 62nd Avenue. You know, Thomas and Holmes is already out to 62nd Avenue. Another mile is to Merrifield Road.
The problem with that bridge though is I'm at the 5400 block.
Yep.
I'm never gonna go to Merrifield or go downtown first. It's way quicker than going to Merrifield.
And there's gonna be very few vehicles,
Yeah.
you know, and for the fall season, maybe, but most of our beef trucks are coming from the north rather than,
Not really,
are they?
no.
No.
But that's a 1 month deal.
But it's a 1 month deal for a lot of
Here's what I
money.
we need to hear from Mr. West. Because if this costs us any significant amount of money, which I think it will, we don't have the resources.
I've already talked to Mr. West.
And,
Yeah.
you know, we have bridges of our own that are in poor repair right now.
Just in the county, yeah.
And so if we're going to push off repairing those bridges to build the bridge out there, which I think is going out there because nobody wants it in their neighborhood here in town.
Correct.
So, you know, we're going to be doing a service to some people out in the rural part of the county whose bridges aren't gonna get fixed. So I think
Don't
we
we
need
have
to
two
hear from you.
bridges? Don't we have two bridges between here and Marigold that takes us over to Minnesota already? And then you've got a lot of,
No,
you've got a lot of,
Bridges between here and Merrifield.
You
Huh?
you have the, you have the
Thompson Bridge.
Thompson Bridge is in, so I don't know what the distance is, but you
the
have.
Thompson Bridge would be
and then-
south several miles.
So Mr. Chair, pushing up, so first of all, yeah, Mr. Phelan and the mayor's office have indicated there would be costs, there would be support in any kind of costs that there were. We're right now, no one from staff is proposing county funds on anything right now. We've just been invited to participate in an engineer selection process. And the second anyone asks me or Mr. West for county money, our answer is gonna be, you need to come to the commission and there's no money. But Holt County, Commissioner Scrandell has said Holt County wants the Merrifield Bridge.
But that bridge out, that road out there is not a state road, so you're gonna have to hear from the state of
No,
North
so
Dakota that they're gonna want
This,
to put
this
money in.
won't work without the two cities, the two counties and the two states working together. It just won't, and most of the grant money, what we're finding out is it can't go towards building a new bridge. It has to go towards rehabbing a bridge. And Ms. Leon will tell you that the amount of strings attached to the funding she's finding just to rehab the bridges probably disqualify us already. It would not solve the inner city. No, it would not solve the inner city.
with limited
So-
funding without the state.
So they want shovel-ready projects a lot, but Commissioner Peach has her hand up here.
Mr. Chair, I have had discussions previously with some county commissioners in Polk County. They have, at one point, one commissioner did admit that they had the funds to cover the cost of a bridge. They were interested in the Merrifield Bridge. As someone who uses the Thompson Bridge, or they call it the KT Road, a lot, going to Crookston, it's a busy road. It's a busy road with sugar beet trucks. It's a busy road for people in Grand Forks or in Grand Forks County that have lake property in Minnesota. Particularly this time of year, from Thursdays to Sundays, it's very, very busy. It's a good bridge because it doesn't flood. So that's a positive. It's built high. And it's got a good clearance on it because the old bridge was much lower. I can't speak, I mean, it's not as far south as you would assume. It's fairly close. It's got the exit off, the off ramp that isn't a direct access. but you get off, you go a half mile and then you turn and go east. A lot of people get off that off ramp and use it to go east. Much quicker for individuals that do live in the south end of Grand Forks to get to Minnesota instead of going through all the lights to get to,
No, it's not.
well,
I can be downtown and in East Grand in 10 minutes. If I go south and then all the way around and down, it's not gonna work.
well, it's used a lot.
Yeah.
And so I don't know if Merrifield is gonna be an answer unless they do work on an off ramp eventually on the interstate. I don't know that, but Polk County was interested years back.
The Commissioner Beach, the discussion Mr. West and I had with Mr. Whiting and
Chuck Waiting.
Rick, Mr. West, counterpart of Polk County. And Mr. West and I agreed with them, wouldn't even entertain this concept unless an interchange at that highway was included in the package. I think the only way this happens is federal assistance. I just don't see how the local entities can put in a $17 million bridge. So just wanted to let the commission know what was going on there. This is the first baby step of many, many baby steps, just to participate with these transports and their
city,
selection
yeah.
process.
Yeah. The other thing that came out, and I think Mayor Paczynski said it right at the end, they really weren't that interested in 24th Avenue or 32nd Avenue. Now, when you look at 32nd Avenue, that is the one that's preferred for an intercity bridge. That goes into a farm field in East Grand Forks. Nobody has any issues with that because there's nobody living there. 32nd Avenue, there's 22 houses on 32nd Avenue that empty out on 32nd Avenue. So it's like the hardship is on the North Dakota side. It is not on the Minnesota side.
Is there another road further out that would, and I don't like the idea of 32nd either. For one thing, I mean, you're gonna have, that totally does 32nd over. And then you end up on Washington Street where then you're gonna create congestion there. So, and
Yeah,
yeah,
schools.
schools and what have you, but I mean, if you're further out, I don't know, what's the other one, 47th or whatever?
Yeah, 47th was off the map, off the
We
grid.
took that off, we
Yeah.
cost prohibited.
Yeah.
And I think Commissioner, now if you'd asked this to answer your question, Polk County would have to realign a couple of their Polk County highways and pave.
Well, and they've already purchased land, and I'm not sure why they did that.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, I meant towards the Merrifield.
Yeah.
They know that and would really, so that's kind of, I just want to make.
Do you have any idea what the cost of that study would be, what their expectation would be for the county to pay?
I don't think, as far as the engineering, the one that Mr. West will participate in, is that what you're talking about?
I guess, yeah.
We have,
If they want to hire somebody to look at this,
they
there's
haven't,
gonna be a cost to that.
they haven't asked us
For anything.
for anything.
Well, but
And
does that fall under? What was the terminology? They're willing to work with us and so.
I actually think it's a study driven by the city of Grand Forks and East Grand Forks.
East Grand Forks, East Grand, without getting into the politics, it was East Grand Forks that initiated it. And then I think it was a bit of a surprise to the city of Grand Forks that it was initiated. And it was at that joint meeting where the city administrator of East Grand Forks asked Grand Forks for participation. There are infrastructure planning grants out there that Mr. West and I have discussed. And that there could be some cost tied to it, which the city has said they would cost share that. No idea what that would be. We're not that far ahead. We've just had the conversation of Polk County, would you be interested? Yes, we would. Okay. The city, both cities asking the two counties to just sit in on a selection committee to study 32nd. And apparently after that joint meeting, they're now widening the scope to include Fairfield Bridge.
Yeah.
So is Grand Forks City only a mile from Fairfield?
It's a mile or 2 miles, I don't remember.
Where is the land that Sanford bought?
Oh,
47th,
46.
near 47th.
Near 47th.
North of it.
Aren't there by choice?
over by the,
It's by the,
Was it? Oh, yeah.
isn't it over?
Somewhere around
Yeah.
the Grand Forks.
just north of where 47th Avenue interchange would be.
I had to stand, I was at the doctor this
Yeah.
morning, I got some. They
We haven't-
beat me up, so I just, shit, sorry. But that's, unless there's anything else for me, that's all I had.
Anything else? Nothing else? Nothing from you. Anything, committee reports, Commissioner Peach?
Yeah, I have just a couple of things. The Human Service Zone Board met today, and one of the big news was that we are finally below 200 children in foster care. So that's very exciting, and that number has been there for quite some time. We're serving about 10,000 people with the programs that we have. And I have a whole chart of the numbers. I'm not going to go through them, but there are some that are in 4 program involvement, 3 program involvement, and that's good. We did, there was a nomination of a individual that there were 2 applications, and this was the top application for a new Human Services Zone Board member. And it was voted on, approved, and passed by the zone board. And now it has to be passed by the commission. And so they asked if I would get that done today. The name is Maya Lundy, and she is the individual who had the top member. She is on the CDIC board as well. And it was fully passed, so they wanted to have a motion or have the commission move on it at this time as well, instead of waiting for 2 more weeks for another regular commission meeting. So in light of that, I would move that the commission approve Maya Lundy as a new board member on the Grand Forks County Human Services Zone Board.
Got a second? Second by Commissioner Null, thank you.
Do we know the term that,
I can get it, I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't remember what the term was.
Well, actually,
3
it would be a 3-year
3 year.
term. Yep, it would be
Yeah,
a
the
3-year
first one
term
is 3
because
years.
This is a new member, so she's not replacing anyone.
and when does it start? The 3-year term?
I would say probably would go into effect August 1st.
Oh, did you say this is this
This is not a
A
replacement.
new board, a new board.
unexpired term, though, they're filling in for someone else,
No.
right?
This is a new board member, a new,
Board member.
They
An
added
additional-
a position.
they added an
Very good.
addition.
Let's make it effective August 1st.
Okay. Effective August 1st.
Do we have a second on that? We had a second, from Commissioner Knopf. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes, and maybe you'll get the spelling of that name too.
Yes, and I can give you the contact information. Okay, and that is all I have to report. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Knopf, Commissioner Engen.
Just a Zoom meeting this morning talking about the community visit that would include the county, the city, and chamber and others to their combat command, trying to figure out a time when if it works for all the disparate groups of people to meet with the various groups at our combat command. And it's kind of gone on for weeks, but it looks like it may happen sometime in October.
Mr. Ross.
Had a fair board meeting last Wednesday, talked about the fair and how things went, and they thanked Diane for all her volunteer work out there. The numbers were down from previous fairs, especially because of that Friday, you know, with the bad weather and high winds and stuff, so. But, it was fairly successful, so tomorrow we've got MPO at noon over in East Grand Forks, and I'm sure we'll be talking about bridges. In fact, I'm almost sure of it.
That's it. I had two meetings, the most important, I guess, were the two on the juvenile detention correctional center, and they were just preliminary meetings. We don't have numbers yet. Size, everything else they're working on. So when you get something more concrete, they'll bring it to us. So that's all I've got.
When could that project start?
I think that we need to take a look, that we can't put anything in cement as far as, and I don't think any of the plans will be drawn up, but until after the election, because if we know that there's money in sales tax, we can probably build that building the way it's supposed to be built and not in pieces. We're gonna end up doing, unless we have that sales tax money, the way it'll be done is that in 8 to 10 years, they're gonna have to add on again. So if we do it the right way, you know, I think we need to see if it's available. If it is, then we can make it right. Now we're gonna have to commit. We'll know more by fall. I don't see any, I think that when they're talking about, you know, the construction prefab, it takes a year just to order the concrete walls and everything else to be built. So you're gonna wait a year once they have a design. That's all I've got. We have that letter from, thank you, from community service. And that's it, right, Debbie?
That's it.
Mr. Ross,
I move for adjournment.
okay? Do we have a second? Second by Commissioner Knopf. All in favor? Aye. Opposed, we're adjourned. Thank you.